Hi everyone, it's Tom Mackie here from the beautiful Norfolk Broads. I'm going to be doing a three-part series on the best filters to use for landscape photography. Alright, the obvious question is, why do we even need to use filters? I get this asked a lot of times on workshops because there's so much you can do in computers nowadays, but for me, I like to see the image when I'm capturing it, and I know that I'm capturing all the information possible at the time when I'm in the field. It's one thing to get back in the computer and think, oh gosh, I've missed this or I've missed that. But I like to get as much information on that sensor as possible. And using filters actually accomplishes that for me. So using filters is all about managing light. I know sensors have come a long way in the recent years, and I know you can actually push them to the limits, but it's not all about pushing your sensor to the limits. It's controlling that light within those parameters so that you get the most information on that sensor to play with later in post-processing. So on the software debate, I don't think it's an either or, it's an and for me. I want to use all the tools available to get the very best possible image for me. One of the burning questions I get asked is which filter system to use. Now, in the spirit of transparency, I am a Lee filter ambassador, but they haven't asked me to do this video. I'm just going to tell you what I've used over the past 30 years as a professional photographer, all the different systems I've tried, which ones I like, and which ones I've ended up using, Lee filters, for a good reason. So let's start there. So the number one reason I've stayed with Lee filters over the years, it's the system. So let me explain. It's the build quality, it's the ease of use, and I've compared it to other filter systems over the years. And I always keep coming back to Lee because it just works. And I've seen guys on my workshops using other different systems and see how they struggle with it. And I thought, well, why make things difficult in the field? Use a system that just is easy to use and does the job. So those of you that are not familiar with Lee filters, let me introduce you. You have a basic foundation kit that just comes, snaps on, snaps off, like this, and you have a filter ring, and if you're lucky enough to use a Nikon, you'll need one of these rings, a 77mm, because most of their lenses tend to be 77mm. Now, unfortunately, those of you that are using Canon, you're going to need about 3 or 4 of those rings, because, and I can speak from experience, I've used Canon, they never have a consistent diameter filter thread ring. So I needed, I think, 4 of them when I was using Canon. Right now I think I've got 2, a 77 and a 72. But you have this filter holder, the foundation kit, where you slide your filters into various different slots. Now when you buy these, they come with 3 slots. I would recommend not using all 3 slots. One, because they actually make the holder a lot wider, so that you risk that, you run the risk of getting vignetting when you're using a wide-angle lens. So I only use 2 slots. The other thing is I don't like to use more than 2 filters at a time. For obvious reasons, the more acrylic that you put in front of the lens, you're going to degrade the lens, or degrade the image rather. When it comes to polarizers, I use a polarizer on the outside. Now this is a landscape polarizer. It's ultra thin, which I recommend. They do a standard polarizer, which is twice the width, but you do run the risk of vignetting with that filter. Now the landscape polarizer has a warm bias, which is great for landscapes because there are most times you want to introduce a little warmth to your scenes. Now this actually screws on to the outside of the filter holder, which I think is brilliant. Now there are other systems like Nisi, which at first I thought, yeah, that's great. That actually fits into the filter holder rather than outside. And then you've got a little ring here. But in using it, I just found it fiddly. And again, I just prefer having this on the outside. So you have to buy an additional ring to fit onto the holder, which then your polarizing filter screws into that ring. Now I do keep this mounted to this all the time, just for quick and ease. When I'm in a hurry, I can just take this, put it on, I'm ready to go. If I don't need the polarizer, I can easily take it off. Now, filters aren't cheap. So whether you're adding to your collection or you're just starting out, I want to show you what filters to buy to get the best value for your money. So start out, you should get yourself one of these bags. Now, I remember the days that I used to have my filters in separate packs in my case, and it would take up so much room. But Leaf Filters have made these lovely little pouches that hold 12 filters, and they have various straps. You can have a strap like this. I prefer this because I can just put this on the side. I've got everything to work with here, or you've got a shorter strap that comes with it that fits around your tripod neck. Now, I would say, starting out, if you buy your first filter, you want to get a polarizer. That's the most important thing. Secondly, a 3-stop ND Grad. I use this more often than not. This is a 0.9, which, let me stop you there. Why do manufacturers like to confuse photographers by saying 0.3, 0.6, 0.9, 1.2, instead of saying 1, 2, 3, 4 stop? It just confuses matters. I know somebody out there will put me straight on this, and it has to do with light transmission through the filter and all this sort of stuff, but it's all about ease of use. And it would be so much easier if they just said 1, 2, 3, 4 stops. But okay, these come in different transitions: hard, medium, and soft. And if I hold those up for you to see through that. So we're going to talk in more detail about these in one of the videos that we're going to do in this series. But which filter should you buy first? It is the 3-stop hard Grad. You'll get more use out of this than any other filter. Now, secondly, I would go to this 2-stop. Go to a 2-stop hard Grad, and they come in the same sort of transitions as well. And the hard Grad, I find that, secondly, I'll get more use out of this. When the conditions are, the lighting conditions change, and you don't have that really contrasty condition in the morning where you'd use that 3-stop, so later on in the day, you'd probably be using a 2-stop. Okay, so if you have some extra cash though, I would plunk out for one of these 4-stop Grads. Now, this is usable when you have a really extreme exposure range, say first thing in the morning or last thing in the evening, and it's really contrasty. You want to control that contrast and bring up the tone of the foreground and control the sky. So 1.2 hard Grad. Okay, so as a recap, first and foremost, buy the polarizing filter first, then your 3-stop ND Grad, 2-stop, and if you've got the extra cash, go for the 4-stop. Okay, so let's say you have your brand new polarizer. Now, what do you do with it? Well, let me show you. Let's take this off. So your polarizing filter is useful for removing reflections. For, say, on a water surface like this, you can just dial it, and you must remember to dial it. So it actually rotates within the filter itself. So it's funny how many times I've seen people using these, and I said, well, are you using a polarizer? Yes. And I look and I think, well, you haven't actually dialed. Oh, you have to dial it. Yes, you do. You have to turn this. So removing reflections, it takes also the reflections off foliage. So even on dull days, when you say photographing gardens, forest, this will actually increase the color saturation in the greens by removing all the reflections off the foliage. Now, if I had £1 for every time somebody on a workshop asked me when we were shooting a sunset, should I use a polarizer? No. Because if you're shooting straight into the sun, it's not going to have any effect. And conversely, if you're photographing with the sun to your back, it's not going to have much of an effect. So maximum polarization is a 90-degree angle to your subject. So if the sun is at your either shoulder, then you're going to get maximum polarization. So what I use the polarizer mainly for is to make clouds pop from the sky. We don't have many clouds today, but if we had some nice brilliant cumulus clouds or cirrus clouds, this would make them really stand out against that blue sky. Okay, so this morning we were in relatively calm conditions by the river, and this afternoon these clouds rolled in. We thought, oh great, this will be a great cutaway piece to illustrate the polarization technique. But what we didn't bank on are these high winds that have come up. Now you might wonder, why am I standing on these hay bales? Well, we are in Norfolk. Norfolk is a very flat place. To get any dimension to your image, you need to get some height onto this scene. So to get as high as possible here, I had to climb up on these hay bales. but it is a little precarious. So I'm going to get these shots here to show you some before and afters, and I'll talk to you a little bit about it later. All right, so I've managed to get down off the hay bales. I thought I'd tuck myself in here out of the wind. I just want to talk you through some of the shots that I did. Obviously, I've done the ones on top of the bales, and I was using the leading line to lead your eye into the shot, using the polarizer before and after to show you the effect. Now, I am using the Lee Landscape Circular Polarizer that has a warm bias to it, which is really ideal for these conditions where you have this warm straw. So you'll see in the after shot, it does really bring out that warm tone to the straw. So as I walked around here, I thought, gosh, I started seeing all sorts of different compositions where the clouds would come over and I had this perfect sort of symmetry where you had the clouds and then you've got two groupings of bales and then a bale of straw in the back. So I thought I'll do one like that as well, and then using a little bit more dimension by shooting the shadow side of the bales too. So you've got that contrast, which is really important. So those are some of the techniques that I've tried, and at the end of this you'll see the before and after shots using the polarizer with and without. So I hope this first video has started you in the right direction on what filters to buy first. Now we're going to be doing future videos on NDs and Grads, and at the end of this video I'll be showing you some of my images on how I've used my polarizing filter. So thanks for joining me on the beautiful Norfolk Broads today, and see you again soon.